Retro Quickies, Action 52, Games 26 through 30. Well, we've broken the halfway point in this marathon. I hope you all are having fun here, because as much as I love laughing at this stuff afterwards, actually playing through these games to get the footage is not all that fun or interesting, because while these games are buggy, glitchy messes, they're really just incredibly boring, and with how many of them are so similar, save for their graphics, it does honestly make each game more difficult to talk about, especially when there's not even a lot to play through. You know, like with this game.
Rocket Jockey!
This game is only 2 levels long, and they loop infinitely every time you finish them. It's once again a space shooter where you throw a lasso at cows to catch them while taking out cattle rustlers in space. Apart from you being a cowboy rustling cows and the lack of any substantial feeling of progression, it is yet again a bare-bones horizontal space shooter where you can actually avoid damage really easily. And since this game's difficulty doesn't increase, you're gonna have a real boring time here.
Non-human.
It's another terrible platformer, with the big gimmick in this game being that it's impossible to make any real progress. The starting gap that you have to jump over is actually so wide that it's almost impossible to get over, especially with the terrible jumping controls. Even if you do get past the gap, the enemies on the other side are often in positions where you can't shoot them fast enough before they either shoot you or run into you. Honestly, that's par for the course with the platformers on this cart, but the only reason anyone remembers this game is that half the screen is completely covered in these weird green faces that have no real purpose other than just looking weird.
Cry, baby!
Wow, game, I really don't appreciate you actively insulting me like this. Just because I'm a sensitive soul doesn't give you the right to criticize me. Two easy jokes aside, this is actually one of the more playable games on the cart. It's a single-screen platformer like Chill Out and Illuminator, where you play as a suspiciously large baby crawling on furniture and spraying something at adults to defeat them. The thing about this is that there is actually some logic to how it works, as each enemy has their own movement patterns that determines how far they move and how quickly they move in that pattern, rather than just being the random movements of most other enemies in the other games. Get far enough into the game and there will also be obstacles that you can't use to climb because they'll kill you instantly, stuff like TVs and stoves, which is a clever touch, though apart from what they are, there isn't much to tell you what is immediately dangerous. Of course, the game doesn't look that good, none of these games look very good, and it falls apart when you actually try to move around. You move so much slower than your enemies that actually getting into a good position to attack them without taking damage yourself is very difficult. There's also the weird quirk where if you drop from any sort of height, you die instantly, which you wouldn't think would be an issue in a game like this, but because you can walk off the furniture mid-climb, there is a very real danger of accidentally walking off and falling to your crying death when you're just trying to move from floor to floor. So yeah, this one is more playable, it feels like a game, but it still isn't that fun, which is sad to say because I probably got further into this one than any other game in the collection.
Slashers!
This is supposed to be a beat-em-up, but really it's more like a game of Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You walk forward until an opponent appears in front of you, and when that happens, you can't walk forward, you can only move backwards or up and down. And when you and your opponent get close to each other, you mash your attack button until one of you dies. More often than not, this would probably be you, but as it turns out, this is one of the only games in the cartridge that works properly with a turbo button, in that pressing turbo is basically an automatic win. You attack so fast that your opponent never hits you, except in rare times the game decides to make an enemy invincible and drains all your health. But if you just back up a bit and then re-engage, that seems to fix the issue. There are different types of opponents, but there's no real difference between them. They all seem to go down the same way, and none of them can match the power of the almighty turbo. The game doesn't even feel like it's really trying to have its own personality. When you make a punchy game that has less mechanical depth and nuance than Urban Champions, I honestly think it's worth a bit of an applause.
Crazy Shuffle!
You know, I wear glasses so that I can actually see what's going on, and it really ticks me off when something comes along that reminds me of just how poor my eyesight is. The entire premise of this game is that it's taking place in a microscopic world where your job is to defeat your opponents by shooting them, but 1, it's very difficult to tell where you are in relation to anything else, 2, it's almost impossible to see your shots or your opponents, and 3, they move so quickly and erratically that lining up a shot against them feels like playing the lottery. The background doesn't help either, looking like an incredibly busy coloring book page. It's both simple and yet busy at the same time, which makes keeping track of everything going on around you infinitely harder. I try and I try and I try, but the game is telling me it doesn't want to be played, and I'm more than happy to oblige. Wow, this one actually feels like it was fairly quick to get through. I don't know if that's a good thing though, it pretty much means I'm running out of things to say, because a lot of the games are starting to blend together at this point. There are a few more standouts left in the last 20 or so games, but there are going to be even more of these goddamn space shooters. In case anyone cares, I am not having fun anymore.